Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be building this beast of a drone. It is a 5-inch budget long-range build. And disclaimer, I did get a lot of my information from Hoarder Sam. Go check out his channel. He has amazing build videos. Basically, I built his 7-inch long-range FPV drone and felt it was just too big for me. The build was fine. It was just too big. Ended up breaking because the longer arms are more fragile. So I also watched his 5-inch build video, and I built my brother a 5-inch build from that, and I loved it. But I was like, why not make it into a long range build? Anyway, it carries this GoPro great. I'm getting long run times. So we'll go step by step. It's pretty simple building this from the ground up. So here it is, everything we need to build this 5-inch long-range FPV drone. I like laying it all out here on the table so we can see really it's not that much we need to put together and it's not too overwhelming. I just started doing this pretty recently, and doing simple things like that really helps the build go along smoothly. Let's go through each individual part real quick. We'll start out with the frame. This is a Mark IV 5-inch frame that comes with these pieces. Mark IV frames are known to be pretty durable. They're very cheap. It costs 15 bucks for all of this, which is pretty insane. And I've built some, and some of them come with the cheaper plastic, but this one seems to be decently durable compared to the other 5-inch build. So I'm excited about this. For 15 bucks, you can't really do much better than that. So that's the frame. Gonna go ahead and grab the electronics. So I will admit these are all hooked up because I was using these on a different build, but everything will still be the same for building this new. You're gonna get this flight stack. I'll show here on the screen. It'll look like this. These two boards come together, the flight controller and the ESC, and then they simply just hook together like this. And then you'll solder on your connections to your other components. The main reason I'm using it is shown to be consistent and work well while being extremely affordable. This flight controller combo is $35 for the 45 amp, which can run up to 4S batteries. And then if you're willing to pay $40, you can get the 60 amp one. I ended up going with the 60 amp one. First package will include your battery lead, capacitor, and these two boards. Then over here, this might look kind of funny. Don't pay attention to this guy. That's just mounted on there right now. This is the Rush Solo VTX, which has a whopping 1.8 watt max output. So that's what's gonna give us a really good range. And then I got this aftermarket lollipop antenna to go with it. We'll see if it's better than the stock antenna. So this guy right here costs $35 right now, which is crazy. And then the little antenna just cost a couple dollars. I think it was like $3 or $4. You could just use the stock one and it would work completely fine, to be honest. I'm trying to see if this will squeeze any extra range out of it. And then what we have mounted on top of here is my beeper. It's a Betaflight version 2 something beeper. I'll show it on the screen here. This is to find your quad if your battery gets ejected, or if it didn't get ejected, then you can manually click a button on your remote and it'll beep really loud so you can find it very easily. This is a Speedy B 2.4 gigahertz ELRS receiver, and what stands out to me with this is the build quality while still being very affordable. It was 10-11 bucks. I went with the good old Runcam Phoenix. I went with the SE because I've had the Runcam Phoenix 2, not SE version, and the SE version just seems to be a little higher quality to me, and it's the same price. This one came in at like just under 20 bucks, which is insane. This thing looks so good. I'm very excited to try it. These are reliable. Not the most powerful, but they'll do really good for a long range drone. I also think they'll be able to do some freestyle maneuvers, but won't be the best for sure. Long range, these things should be great. I just picked up some good old Gemfan Hurricanes, 5-inch props. So those will work great. I love the Hurricanes because they are so durable. They're flexible and not brittle. So before breaking, they usually just bend. You can bend them back. You're going to need some kind of battery to power your quad. I'm using homemade lithium ion batteries. Cost me about $12 to build each one, 2800 milliamps. And I really like these. They give you good flight time. However, if you don't want to build your own battery, that can be dangerous. And so that's totally fine. You can go ahead and buy a 4S LiPo. I recommend going off of Amazon. It's about the same price as AliExpress for batteries, and they'll get to you quicker. You will be good with anything from 1500 to 2000 milliamp 4S battery. Just make sure you get an XT60 connector. Then I also recommend getting extra hardware. You're going to need an M3 screw kit. Comes with different sizes of bolts here. And I've mixed stuff in here, so this isn't exactly what it comes with, but you're going to have different bolts. And this one has some M2, some M3, which is good. Anyway, I'll link this below because the motor won't mount to the frame with the stock bolts that it comes with. So, and it's just nice having extra bolts anyway. To connect, I have a Radio Master Pocket, which I love and highly recommend. It is the best budget option. Costs about $65 off of Amazon. You can also get it off AliExpress. Just make sure you get the ELRS version. There's FlySky, and you want the ELRS. Show you which goggles I use. These aren't as much budget goggles. I got these on sale. They're the SkyZone 040 Pros for around $300 directly from their website. Really love them. Would recommend them. However, if you want more of a budget option, just go with the Eachine 800D box goggles, and those cost around $100 usually. But if you want something a little nicer, smaller, these are really awesome, and I've been enjoying them. The frustrating thing about the frames from AliExpress is a lot of the time they don't come with instructions. And even if they do come with instructions, I'm gonna say they flat out suck. What I have learned is by going onto AliExpress, scrolling down through the photos, I'll show you on the screen here, that you can look at the photos and then piece it together. I'm not gonna bore you with me putting this together because the best way, go to the AliExpress listing, look at more photos, and just piece it together by looking at it. That is the easiest way by far. Okay, now that we've gotten and assembled this far, all that needs to be put on would be the top piece right here. We're just gonna dry mount everything to make sure it all fits. It's all gonna fit. Sometimes you'll get the components and there won't be enough space. I can see all the mounting holes line up. It's all looking really good. Camera's gonna go right in there. Perfect. Oh yeah. So this little hole right here is in the center. And then on the VTX, it's to the side. So it doesn't line up. This guy, you have to take off. You take off the antenna for the receiver. So the receiver, we're gonna thread through this center hole, and then I'm gonna drill a little hole just with a drill and a drill bit for this other antenna. So this one will just go on like so. And then we'll put these guys in here. A little bit of a stretch. Come on, there we go. Just drilled it out. Need to clean it off still, but wasn't too hard. I think that'll work. Just slides right in there. Just like that. Just wanted to show you for the wiring. You're only going to be using the DC in, ground, data, and video wire. You can remove the other wires. Everything is dry mounted. Now nothing's on there good except the VTX. I think I forgot to mention I super glued this beeper on top of the VTX. That's because I don't mind them just being together as a package deal, and that's worked great. It's on there really solid. And I know I cheated and I've got these wires soldered up, but you won't have any of the wires soldered up yet, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't solder anything because there's some stuff we need to do before we solder anything. Like update the board and stuff, but we'll get to that. Before we solder anything, pretend I haven't soldered here. Your flight controller, the top one, you need to make sure it works and you need to update the firmware. To do that, you need something called Betaflight Configurator. It's the system that programs your flight controller. If you've never heard of Betaflight Configurator, I will link a tutorial in the description because that is a whole video in itself. You may also need a driver depending on your computer, so I'll link a video about the drivers. Once you have those things figured out, you will open up Betaflight Configurator on your computer. You need a USB-C cable that's hooked up to your computer. It's hooked up here. For my Mac, I need a stupid adapter, but most people probably won't need that. And then you're gonna hook it straight up to your flight controller. And if you're gonna do this for any prolonged amount of time, you definitely need some kind of airflow like a fan. But since this is gonna be quick, won't need anything. So this light's flashing, that's good. I see we are connected on the computer here. We're gonna go to update firmware, AutoTect, Omnibus F4SD. Gotta remember that. Connect again. Go to the CLI bottom left. We need to put it in bootloader mode to update. So BL, enter. We are now in bootloader mode, as you can see on the top of the screen. Now we're going to update firmware. This time you can't auto detect. Omnibus F4SD right there. Click the newest one and we're going to load firmware online. Loaded it, flash firmware. It'll erase what's on there and update it. And I think this will make it so I have to configure everything again so I can show you how to do that like you were starting fresh. And program successful. Connect. Okay. Yep. So now that this warning's up here, I know that we're going to have to reconfigure everything, which is great. So I can show you. It's going to look exactly how yours will look now. And I'll be able to show you the configuration at the end. While fitting the motors on, you just want to make sure you have the right size because you don't want the pins to go up through into the copper windings. So that's all we're looking for here. Oh. The size that I found works, the M3 10mm bolts. We're going to pretend like I haven't soldered onto the board at all and solder on the battery leads. And I'm just going to give you some tips since I've already done it. I like to put the capacitor on first, and you need to remember the capacitor actually does have a negative side. That's one thing I didn't realize when I was starting out. So look for this white line that will go on the negative. Other side will go on the positive. I like to put a little solder this guy in there, and then do my battery leads next. There'll be little holes where you can thread this guy through. So it's easier to do this first, battery leads next, and then you got to remember, I don't know why actually, but the negative lead sucks in a lot more heat. So you're going to have to use a little more heat. Make sure you have a big soldering tip on there. That'll really help you. We have our battery leads and our capacitor on correctly. Now we're just tinning these pads. I have a very large tip on here. My soldering iron station's at 376. We're gonna put some solder on here. And put that on here. And voila. Simply got these wires that are gonna need to be cut. I'm just going to use some electrical tape to tape it down to the leg, which I think will look really good. And then the closest wire will go to each one. So this guy will go to that closest pad, to the next pad, and to the next pad. And snip, snip. Strip these wires down. Copper wire, because these motors are a little bit cheaper. We gotta cut costs somewhere. It'll be a little harder to solder, but you're just gonna tin them like we tin everything else. And okay, I know it's not the prettiest thing in the world. Definitely has some problems with some of them. But this is a budget build. These wires are hard to work with, so just do your best. Get them connected. As long as they're soldered good and they're not touching any other metal part, they will go. We're gonna connect our flight controller to our ESC just by plugging these two in. And then I'll use the smoke stopper. This is a smoke stopper. It'll give us the green light saying we're all good, or we'll get the red light, which I have not gotten yet, meaning you have a short circuit somewhere and you need to figure it out. So if you plug the battery into the smoke stopper, you see that it's green. Now you'll plug it into here and it's still green. Just need to solder the wires onto our receiver. No ground goes into this one. Just stick it through. This. We're just gonna twist. You are now ready to solder everything according to the diagram onto your flight controller. Since I just have to do the ELRS receiver, I'll give you a close-up of what I've already done. The data and the video cord are going to go over here. There'll be buzzer positive here, the very edge, the red one. Then buzzer negative is the yellow, and you'll have an extra ground in there. For the camera, the video, which is yellow at the top, the power in. So I'm choosing to bridge, and I didn't realize this, but you have to see the little solder joint I did there. You have to join two little pads together, and that, if you don't do that, you won't get power. So you can choose 9 volts or 5 volts. I chose 9 volts, and the camera will work with either, I believe, but I just went with 9 volts. And then you'll ground the camera here. We're going to use these ones to plug in our ELRS receiver. And then just, I guess, some tips is you want to make these cords as small as possible, and you'll want to wrap them up. This will just make it so they're not vibrating around and causing problems as much, and hopefully will help your video quality. Black is to ground, red is to power. You have R1 and T1. T is going to go to R, and R is going to go to T. So you'll swap those two, and that's how they connect up. I'll include a wiring diagram in the description. Just finished hooking up the receiver here. Green cord is going to T1. Yellow wire is going to the R, and then you got your power and ground. Kind of like that. Boom. Antenna goes out the back. Now you'll just go through and solder everything else on that I've already got soldered on here. Here's the finished product. It's actually been configured in Betaflight already, so it is ready to go fly. And then I can share my thoughts with you on how I like it. If you are building along with me, I'll show you the Betaflight configuration at the end. Here is my first flight. And I've now put multiple flights on this quad, and I just want to say first impression is I freaking love it. This thing is so much fun. It's pretty dang fast for what it is, has good run times, durable. I've crashed it a couple times, and it's just flying amazing. The picture on the bottom right, I think it's pretty good. That's what I'm seeing through the goggles. That's the DVR. And out in the open like this with just 400 milliwatts of power, I was getting some really good range. As you can see, I'm just going. This is just back in the foothills where there's not too many people that I would disturb while flying, and I was having a really good time. I have an old GoPro Session that I still use. It weighs 75 grams, and the drone was handling it like a champ. Most naked GoPros they put on drones nowadays are quite a bit lighter, like 25 grams, which is crazy that this one's carrying one that's so much heavier. So if you could get like a nano HD camera that weighs 15 grams or a naked GoPro, the flight characteristics are even going to be better on this quad. Let's talk about flight time, because for long range FPV, that is really important. I'm running a 2800 milliamp homemade lithium ion battery, and I got 12.5 minutes of flight time flying around like this, which is pretty amazing because this is not conservative. And this was sub 50 degree weather. It's still pretty chilly around here. So I imagine with more conservative flying, in warmer weather, that I'd be getting over 15 minutes of range. I'm hoping I can get about 20 minutes with some careful flying. And I want to do some tests with long range to see how far I really can go. I really like this part where I gain some altitude here and just take a good look at this view. That is the cool thing about these drones, is I'm not going crazy with any tricks. I am doing some maneuvers, but I just love cruising around. The longer flight times are really enjoyable. And then I come down and dive through here, and this is the best feeling ever. So in conclusion, I think you're just getting such a good deal for your money. You get this as low as $130, long flight times, plenty of power for most people's needs unless you're going crazy with freestyle, and it seems like it's going to go pretty far. Stay tuned because I do want to do some range tests. Anyway, for everyone who's made it this far, thank you so much for watching. It means a lot. Let's get to the Betaflight configuration now. Before going to Betaflight configurator to program everything so we're ready to fly, we need to bind our radio and our quadcopter here. This is a pretty simple process. There's multiple ways to do it. I'll just show you the way I usually use. That's really simple. I highly recommend the Radio Master Pocket. You'll never outgrow this thing. It is super durable. It works great. It has tons of features on it and a really good way to get in the hobby. You don't have to spend a ton of money. This one costs about $65. Also, there's ways to like program models into here. I'm going to link a video in the description on how to do that. But if you don't want to do that, that's okay. I'll show you how to bind it without really setting up anything. So turn on the radio.
Welcome to HTX and Flight Mode Acro.
So here we go. There, now you can see it. So we're simply gonna go to model, and then you should have one that says pocket. So you scroll up to pocket, then you're gonna push down on this scroll wheel and select model. And then you'll go return. I'm gonna stay on 7-inch drone because that's the one I've programmed.
And Flight Mode Acro.
Return, but you should be on pocket, which will work. After that, we're gonna go to system. You should have Express LRS on the top. Click the scroll wheel, and then you're simply gonna scroll down until you're at bind. You're ready on this end. Now we need to get the quadcopter into binding mode. Like I said, there's different ways to do this, but the easiest one is to unplug and plug in your battery 3 times, and you leave it plugged in on the 3rd time. And then your receiver right here should start flashing quickly, and that's how you know it's in bind mode. So we go 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're getting some double. Actually, I think double blink is fine mode. Anyway, we'll know if it worked or not when we click. And all those noises were coming from the beeper. Don't have to be worried about that. Click bind. Binding. And then return, or you hold down return once that's done. And you'll see those three or four little lines there. That means it is connected. And when we go into Betaflight, we'll be able to move the sticks and see if everything's working as it should. We have our radio powered up. We are connected to our drone, and we're ready to program the drone. So when you connect it, it'll probably automatically connect, but I'll push connect here. You're going to get a warning right as you start up, and it's because you need to calibrate the accelerometer. So we'll calibrate it. Just put your drone on a level surface and calibrate. We can also take this time to take the drone and make sure it's moving the same way that we're moving it. So I see it's matching all my movements, and we're good there. If it's not, there is a way to change it, and you can look up a tutorial on how to do that. Normally you should be good. So I'm just going to methodically go down the left side here. Okay. And so our serial RX, the receiver, we set to 1. And while I'm here, UART3 is where we set the VTX. And this one is smart audio. So we can go save and reboot. Beeper's going to make some obnoxious noises while we do this. So we saved and rebooted. Now we go, might as well make sure the receiver is working. So over to the receiver tab, and yay, it's moving when we move the sticks. And then you can check if it's moving the right way. So throttle, back, forward, side, spin. There we go. Yeah, so it's connected, working correctly. That is awesome. We can see on the screen we're doing it by serial UART. That's correct. The serial receiver provider is Crossfire, as it says here. That is all good. Go back to configuration. And we're just going to change a couple things, like we don't need an LED strip. If you wanted to add a GPS, this is where you would add it in. The maximum arm angle, we want to change to 180 because this allows us to arm at any angle. It's just really annoying when it thinks you're at an angle and then it won't let you arm. Craft name, Zombie, because this guy's been taken apart and put together so many times. We'll do Zombie. And then after you do anything, remember to save and reboot. And we'll have to reconnect once it allows us to. There we go. Connect it again. We'll go to power and battery. You can set warning cell voltage. So I hate when it's warning me a ton at 3.5. I set it lower. You can do what you want. I'll do 3.2. Minimum cell voltage we'll set to 3. And since I use lithium ion, we shouldn't ever be at 4.3, but we could do 4.25. It shouldn't really be over 4.2, but I'll give it some room. Save. Those are just the values I like. Do your research and set your batteries to whatever you feel you want them to be at. We can look at the presets tab, but we're not going to do anything here. I'm not going to do anything under PID tuning, but we can look at it. So this is just like for more Experienced people, you can just leave it on the standard and it'll fly great for now. But once you get more into things, you might want to mess with the PID tuning. We saw the receiver works. We need to add in our modes though. So we'll add range. This is for the arm. And you can grab your controller here. So mine was already armed. But to arm, it's going to be this trigger up here. And if you look at the screen, this is where the power level is. So we need to be over that. So we can just leave it somewhere up here. And we know it's going to arm if it's that power level. I will just add angle, but not horizon. So for me, acro mode is switched all the way forward, which as you can, we need to switch this to aux 2. So there we go. So it's going to put us in angle mode. It's saying horizon on my controller, but that's not correct. So angle mode and horizon are both within this yellow spot. So in either of those modes, I'm just going to be doing angle mode. But if I go forward, it's going to go to the default, which is acro mode. Now we're going to add in our beeper. Add range. Beeper is aux 4. And when we click this trigger, I'm setting it to this trigger. You could set it to whatever switch you want, but I'm setting it to aux 4. So when I click on aux 4, it should start beeping if I need to find it. So I'm unclicking aux 4, and I will save all of our ranges in here. And save. So that should have saved them. Just going to make sure that they save. Yep, still there. Now we can go ahead and do our motors. So you need to accept the liability risk. And then what I like to do first is manually slide each motor. So you slide it up, it should turn the motor on. So each of mine turned on. That's great. Now we can stop motors. And then we'll go through both of these options on the screen here to reorder the motors. If needed, and then we'll do the motor direction as well. And if you look on the screen here, you just follow the arrows. They're going to be, the two bottom ones will spin down together, two top ones up together, like that. Just follow the arrows. So first, let's reorder the motors. I understand the risks. We don't have any props on. Start. Okay, so one of your motors is going to be spinning. And you just click on the corresponding one. So, yep. Now this one's spinning. Now this one's spinning. And now the top one's spinning. Save. Awesome. I love you, beeper. We are reconnected now. We'll go back to the motors tab and do motor direction. I understand all risks, and we'll do the wizard. So we'll click start spinning the motors, and then will just need to put your finger up against the bell of the motor to see which way it's spinning. And then you just need to get them spinning the correct way. So click on the motor to change spin direction. 1. Okay. and 2. So I had to change 2, and I need to change 4. Okay. Stop motors. Close. There's no save and reboot, so it automatically saves for the motor direction. I'll go out of it, back in, and then I'll spin each motor individually once I understand the risk. I'll go ahead and spin each one individually to make sure that they're ordered correctly and they're spinning the correct way. A little too much. Okay. So I've made sure all the motors are going the correct way. We can get to the video transmitter. And we see, since in the ports we set up the transmitter, we are seeing stuff here. So let's see. We need to get a table in here, and I'll show you the easiest way. So I just looked up the Rush Solo VTX table. Okay. So click on this one. And with my computer, it works best just to copy everything. So Command copy, and we load from clipboard, and voila. It just loads all the values in for us. Now I'll hit save. Okay, it's saved. Now you can choose which band and channel you want to be on. I do race band 1 usually. Power level 400 is a good for now. Just be using 400. And then I'll hit save one more time. Great, that is all set up. So this is what's going to be shown in your goggles. And everyone's going to do whatever they want to. I'll just show you some things that I think are good to have. And I forgot to do this, and I had to go back and redo everything. Make sure to switch from HD to NTSC. NTSC is for analog cameras, which is what we're using. And everyone's going to do whatever they want to. I'll just show you some things that I think are good to have. Battery current draw. Let's see. Battery voltage. To do core temperature. Crosshairs. And I just sped up this last part because it takes a while, but you just select what you want, drag it into place, and that's what you'll see in your goggles. Don't forget to hit save on the bottom right, and that's it. You should be good to go fly.